ANDOR Season 2, Episode 1, 9.5 out of 10. Episode 2, 8.5. Episode 3, 10 out of fucking 10. Hi all, so my dad and I just finished watching the first 3 episodes of ANDOR Season 2, and oh my goodness, this show is top tier Star Wars. My dad made the point that ANDOR feels more like it is competing with highbrow fantasy shows like Game of Thrones or House of Dragon, and given how seriously the material is handled, I wholeheartedly agree. The writing is top notch, and the creative decisions that have been made across Season 1 and the start of Season 2 have left my jaw on the floor. I want to give a spoiler warning for ANDOR Season 2, so if you haven't watched it yet, go check this show out. It is shaping up to be one of, if not my favorite work in the Star Wars canon. Now, on to spoilers. In Season 1, we watched the injustices of the Empire slowly radicalize apolitical Cassian into the rebel movement while simultaneously examining the high moral cost of fighting evil. Classic Star Wars plays into the good versus evil dichotomy, while the ANDOR TV show dives into the mud and plays in a much more gray territory. Radicalize usually has negative connotations, and the rebels are essentially a terrorist group, but here's the catch. We know they're doing the right thing. This is the good side, even though the actions they have to take to reach their goals are often less than admirable. Look at Mon Mothma. She's essentially sold her daughter to a crime lord's son in order to continue funding the rebellion. When legal means wouldn't suffice, she had to sink into the seedy underbelly to continue helping the rebels. And who are the rebels anyway? ANDOR shows us that they are actually a number of disjointed groups that share a common goal but struggle to organize. This is evident in the first episode of Season 2, where one rebel group kills a member of another, then their group splinters into 2 factions after a violent disagreement. The rebellion is at its as we know from Season 1,
I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything!
Luthen realizes that Mon Mothma is being blackmailed and arranges to have her tormentor taken care of. When Mon is initially insistent that they can pay him off, his relentless threats lead her to realizing that Luthen is right. He needs to be killed. This leads to Mon trunk dancing her way through a mental breakdown, which is something I never expected to see, and also something I didn't know I needed. Season 2 opens with someone finally not knowing how to fly a random ship as Cassian nearly bungles the mission by reversing a stolen ship into the back wall of a hangar. We also get an impressive long take in Episode 1, which follows Mon Mothma as she interacts with various guests at the wedding of her daughter. The season premiere also has Deidre and Krennic plotting the genocide of Gormans. They use propaganda to dehumanize them and associate them with spiders, much like how Hitler associated Jews with rats. Episode 2 has Bix and friends getting trapped on a farm planet during an Imperial audit. Here we are introduced to a sexually perverse officer who creeps on Bix. While the undertones of sexual predation are interrupted before they become blatant, Episode 3 pushes the boundaries of Star Wars far beyond what I thought I would ever see. Oh, how far we've come from the voyeuristic gaze on Princess Leia in Return of the Jedi. Leia was sold to Jabba as a sex slave, but the material was never handled with the weight and seriousness that such a topic demands. Here in ANDOR, the creepy officer returns and tries to caress Bix. This escalates into a full-on rape attempt, with Bix having to fight him off with a fucking hammer, and she uses it. Oh my god. It really calls to mind the infamous first kill in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And also, like Chainsaw, ANDOR is able to depict a violent act with little blood, all while making the audience think they are seeing more than they actually are. The initial hit to the head with the hammer stuns the officer, but the subsequent hit leaves him discombobulated and stumbling around as he suffers from serious head trauma. The strikes to the head eventually result in the officer's death. So let me repeat that. Bix beats her attempted rapist to death with a hammer. I don't know how Disney allowed this, but thank hell they did, because this is some of the best and most serious Star Wars content ever created. Words like illegals and visas are used in the show, drawing direct ties to political issues in our reality. This gives the show a weight of realism, which I think is a trait in the best works of sci-fi. I also want to take a moment to mention Deidre and Cyril. In Episode 2, it was revealed to my great surprise that they have suddenly become a couple and moved in together. Episode 3 shows us displays of perfectionism as Cyril Cyril gets ready, and it was like watching Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. Cyril's overbearing mother and his inability to stand up to her also calls to mind Norman Bates in the classic film Psycho. However, Cyril has Deidre looking out for him in a romance that actually turns out to be quite sweet for two characters who are, quite frankly, pieces of shit. Deidre making Cyril's mom her bitch was also satisfying, especially after his mom thought she could walk all over them. Brasso also dies in episode 3 after being sold out to the Empire by the man who is providing him shelter. This made me think of the opening scene of Inglourious Bastards. And obviously, a certain massacre is coming up that might be the darkest Star Wars has ever gone, but other than that, I am so curious to see what other horrific surprises Andor Season 2 has in store for us. Doom Grips out.